Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for watching. Finally, we're back out here to make another video. Sorry for the long layoff. The weather has just been horrible over these last couple weeks. That's one of the downsides of making these gun videos. You kind of got to let the weather dictate your schedule. But today it's a lot better. It's freezing cold, but at least it's not raining like it has been for the last couple weeks. So this I can deal with. But today we're going to compare the Speer Gold Dot and the Speer G2. Now, I've gotten questions on these over the years, and it seems like there is a little confusion on what the differences are exactly between the Gold Dot and the G2, and I got to admit that I really don't know either. I always thought that the G2 was just basically the same Gold Dot bullet, just in a different package, and kind of their attempt at marketing the Gold Dot better, but that's definitely not the case. So obviously Gold Dots have been around forever, decades, and they've been used by civilians and law enforcement and stuff like that, and they've always performed really well. That 124 grain plus P Gold Dot will always be one of my favorites. I just love that bullet. But the G2 has only been around for 5 or 6 years, and again, I read up on this a little bit. I think 2014 was when these came out, and they were mostly marketed towards law enforcement, and they were designed to penetrate barriers better and not clog quite as bad as the original Gold Dot. But from the research I did, it sounds like originally they weren't performing very well, and they kind of had to go back and redesign this bullet, and apparently they fixed some of the problems that the original G2 was having. So today, we're just gonna shoot these and find out for ourselves what is the difference between the Speer Gold Dot and the Speer G2. So I apologize for the lighting. Obviously, I'm kind of backlit by the sun right now, and this is the only direction I can shoot in, so I'm trying to set the camera so that you guys can still see me without making everything way too bright. But on the table down there, we have my 20% ballistics gel block. That is the gel we're gonna use today, and then behind it, we have another one just in case anything goes all the way through. So we also have 2 calibers that we're gonna test today. We have the 9mm Glock 17 and the 40 Smith & Wesson Glock 23. Now obviously the Glock 17 has a longer barrel than the 23, but this isn't really a 9 versus 40 video. This is more of a Gold Dot versus G2 video in the 9 and the 40. So as long as the barrel length is the same for each bullet, that's all that really matters. So before we get started, I want to show you guys what these bullets look like side by side, because I was not expecting this. So the Gold Dot is on the left and the G2 is on the right. Obviously the Gold Dot just looks like a regular hollow point, and then the G2 you can see is basically filled in with either a polymer or maybe a wax filling. I'm not really sure, but it's definitely filled all the way in, I assume to prevent clogging when it goes through barriers and stuff like that. And I just thought that was kind of cool. That's definitely not what I expected. It's also a much more shallow hollow point cavity as well. So definitely quite a big difference in the way that these bullets look. So we obviously have the same bullet weight for each caliber. In the 9mm we have the 147 grain, and in the 40 we have the 180 grain. So that's a lot of information I just gave you guys. Hopefully you were able to follow along, but we're gonna start with the 9mm 147 grain Speer Gold Dot. Let's see how it does. Well, I just realized I didn't put my safety glasses on before I shot that bullet, so I apologize for that. But our 9mm 147 grain Gold Dot went in right there, and there is a humongous glare on these gel blocks, guys, so sorry about that. But you can see the wound cavity for probably the first 4 or 5 inches is actually pretty impressive, especially for a 147 grain bullet. And then it continued down our first gel block, and it actually kind of went into our second gel block a little bit, about 1 inch, and then bounced back into the first one. So these are 16-inch blocks. We'll go ahead and give this one 17 inches since it did kind of creep into that second gel block. And you can see that the bullet expansion also looks like it did pretty well. So 147 grain has honestly never been my favorite bullet weight for a 9mm, but since that's what we have for the G2, I wanted to get, obviously the same weight Gold Dots to compare it to. So pretty impressive for the 9mm Gold Dot. All right, now we're gonna try the 147 grain 9mm G2. Felt like the G2 might have recoiled just a little bit harder. So real quick, I want to give a shout out to Handle It Grips, who sent me a bunch of different grips for my handguns, and I actually really like them a lot. This is the one that I put on my Glock 17, and you can see that it obviously just fits really well, super easy to put on, and they feel better than most of the other grips that I've ever used, so I really do like them. If you remember the frozen Glock torture test that I did, that was like 2 days after I put this grip on, and they're just staying on there, stuck like glue. So they seem to be really high quality, and again, I actually like the way they feel a lot. So check out their Instagram. It is Handle It Grips. I'll try to put it across the screen here. They have a cool Instagram page, and I really appreciate that. So our 147 grain Speer G2 went in right below our Gold Dot, and the wound cavity looks about the same, maybe a little bit smaller from the G2, but pretty similar. And then this bullet continued down the gel block, past our Gold Dot, and went into our second gel block, and you can see that it stopped right there. So definitely several inches further than our Gold Dot did, and it looks like it also expanded really well. And it looks like our Speer G2 stopped at about 20 inches into our ballistics gel block. So definitely a lot more penetration than the Gold Dot. And like I said, I'll take these bullets out when we're done so that we can see what the difference is in expansion as well. All right, now we're gonna move on to the 40 out of the Glock 23. We're gonna start with the 180 grain Speer Gold Dot. So this is quite a different result than we got with the 9mm, but remember, this is 20% gel, so you're gonna get less penetration in this than you would in like the FBI test. So keep that in mind. But our 40 Smith & Wesson Gold Dot went in just to the left of our 9mm, and you can see that that wound cavity is definitely bigger than either of our 9mm were. Over here you can see it as well. Just a really big wound cavity, and really impressive from the 40. The bullet continued down the gel block and came to a stop right there. So quite a bit shorter than either of our 9s, but you can see that it looks like it just expanded perfectly and performed really well. And our 40 caliber Gold Dot stopped at about 12.5 inches into our ballistics gel. So again, less penetration, but the 40 is obviously a little more powerful, and that bullet just looks like it expanded and performed perfectly. So pretty impressive. All right, now we're gonna try the 40 caliber G2 and see what the difference is. Obviously this one also has that little polymer or wax filling or whatever it is in the cavity of the hollow point, but you can see it a little bit better on this one because the 40 is obviously just a bigger bullet. Much more shallow hollow point cavity as well. So the Hornadies do something similar. They have the red flex tip, but I've never really seen anything that looks like this. It just looks like they put wax in the hollow point cavity. So kind of interesting. Let's see how the 40 caliber G2 does compared to the Gold Dot. Again, the G2 felt like it had more recoil in the 40 caliber as well. All right, so our 40 caliber G2 went in right below our Gold Dot, and you can see that the wound cavity is actually a little bit smaller with the 40 caliber G2 than it was with the Gold Dot. Not much different, they're pretty much the same, but the G2 is just a little bit smaller. Than the bullet continued down the gel block past the Gold Dot, just a little bit, and came to a stop right there, and it also looks like it expanded really well. All right, it looks like our 40 caliber G2 stopped at about 13 inches into our ballistics gel block. So 1 inch more penetration than the Gold Dot, and both of the G2s actually penetrated further than the Gold Dots. The 9mm, there was obviously a bigger difference, but they just penetrated further overall. And the G2s definitely do penetrate a little bit more. So we're kind of running out of room, which sucks, but I might bring the second gel block around to the front because I want to at least test a couple of these in like a heavy clothing test. That's obviously what the bullet was made, you know, to excel in, was barrier penetration and duty use and stuff like that. So we will do more videos down the road, maybe a hard barrier test and just a big duty test video. But before we go, I do want to at least try these bullets in a heavy clothing test. So instead of the heavy clothing, I went ahead and got out a leather square that I've had for a while and I haven't really done very much testing with. So we will do the heavy clothing down the road in other videos, like I said. But for this, we're gonna use the leather, and I didn't change the ballistics gel either. I left the same gel block in the front, and I think I can place these rounds so that they don't hit any of the others, hopefully. But for this, we're gonna use the 9mm, and then after this, I have another test we're gonna do with the 40. So first, we're gonna shoot the 147 grain Gold Dot and see how it does through our leather. Put my glasses on this time. All right, so there's a lot going on in the ballistics gel block, so I'm gonna try to show you guys this without confusing you, but just remember, we're looking for how the Gold Dot did through the heavy clothing compared to when we shot it into bare gel. So our Gold Dot went into our leather square right there, and you can see over here that the wound cavity is actually bigger through the leather than it was in the bare gel, which is kind of interesting. I've never seen that happen. But the bullet continued down, kind of turned to the right a little bit, past the Gold Dot that we shot into bare gel, which is right there, then continued into our second gel block and came to a stop right there. So it did pass the original Gold Dot, but it still didn't penetrate as far as the G2 did. So you can see down here that bullet definitely did not expand nearly as much as the Gold Dot that we shot into bare gel, and obviously it penetrated probably 3 or 4 inches further than the one into bare gel as well. So let's try the G2, and theoretically it should perform better than the Gold Dot, so there shouldn't be as much of a difference from bare gel to the leather test as there was in the regular Gold Dot. Let's see. I really hope I can get this in the gel block without hitting any of the other rounds. I'm gonna aim right for the middle. It looks good from here. Hopefully it didn't curve and hit anything. So our 9mm G2 hit our leather square right there, dead center where I was aiming, and it looks like it managed to avoid all the other bullets in the gel block, so that's good. But the wound cavity from the G2 through the leather is pretty much non-existent. Hopefully you guys can see that in there, but it just basically went a straight line about the exact same size as the bullet, and again, didn't do any damage in the ballistics gel. So the bullet left our first gel block, passed all the other bullets in the gel, and came to a stop right there about halfway down our second ballistics gel block. And yes, that bullet did not expand or even start to expand at all. So the Gold Dot through the leather actually did quite a bit better than the G2, and it's gonna be hard to see because you can't really see through the gel over there, but that's our Gold Dot through the leather over there, and it did expand. Not as much as bare gel, but it definitely tried to expand and did a lot better than the G2 did. So you definitely got enough penetration with the G2, but it didn't expand at all. And that's kind of a bummer. I was really starting to like the way that this bullet was doing. But through the leather, which is a hard test to pass, it's a thick fabric, but it's not much different than like a heavy clothing test. I usually get similar results in the leather and the heavy clothing. And the 9mm Speer G2 out of a full-size gun did not expand at all through our clothing test. All right, I got our bullets out of the gel block, and this video is starting to run kind of long, so I'm gonna try to do this as quick as I can, but here are the Gold Dots that we shot into bare gel. Both of these expanded pretty well. The 40 did flatten out quite a bit more, but that is a 147 grain 9mm. So fun fact, you can see the Gold Dot in the middle of the 40, and I believe that's where this bullet gets its name. So here are the G2s that we shot. Again, both of these did pretty well in the bare gel. That 40, I gotta say, is really cool looking. It's got like little gold spikes sticking up all along the front of the bullet. So pretty cool, and the G2s also did well in bare gel. And then here are the Gold Dot and the G2 that we shot through the leather. And again, the Gold Dot actually expanded quite a bit. Not like it did in bare gel, obviously, but it did expand, and the G2 did not expand at all and looks about like it did before we fired it. So we've done some pretty scientific tests in this video today, but before we go, we're gonna do one more test that will actually determine which of these two bullets is the best, and that is the watermelon test. So we have 2 watermelons out here. We're gonna shoot one with the Gold Dot and one with the G2 and see which of our bullets does more damage to our watermelons. All right, for this one, we're gonna use the 40 caliber because, well, it's a 40 caliber, and we have the Gold Dot and the G2 both in the magazine. So first, we got the Gold Dot. And the G2. Huh. I think the Gold Dot won that one. Well, I'm I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this one up, guys. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I gotta say, I was impressed with the G2 up until we got to the leather test, and then that kind of disappointed me. It wasn't what I expected at all, because that's exactly what the G2 is designed not to do. So the Gold Dots I've always loved, and coincidentally, the Gold Dot did better than the G2 did in the test that I specifically created for the G2 to win. So kind of weird. Maybe it was a fluke. Maybe, you know, if we did that 5 times, 4 out of 5, it wouldn't do that. I don't know, but I guess that's why we come out and do the test. But either way, I'm sure that we will do more videos with it down the road and see what it's really made of. So let me know in the comments what else you would like to see me test with the Gold Dots and the G2, and I look forward to making some more videos with it. So I want to thank the viewer who sent me this ammo to make this video. Once again, just amazing support from all you guys, and I really appreciate that. If you would like to help support the channel and you aren't yet, you can visit my Patreon account. I will post a link to that in the description box below as well, and you can visit me over there and help make more videos like this possible. If you like this video, guys, please let me know in the comments and give this video a like for me. I'd really appreciate that as well. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.